Good morning, students. In this video, I'm going to be explaining what I'd like you to do on this proficiency planning tool group document since I can't be at school with you because I'm homesick. So the purpose of this tool that I want you to work on today is to really make a plan to make sure that you're successful for your research project. To begin, you'll work with your group and read the directions. They tell you to read through the required standards, including what proficiency looks like, and then really brainstorm how is it that you are going to show proficiency, kind of meet these checkpoints on whatever your product is that you're turning in. You're also going to think about, well, when would we want to have that done? Once you have gone through both of these required standards and really taken the time to unpack them, you'll move on and go into this three choice standard sections. So there's a blue section related to science and engineering practices. There are three to choose from. You'll need to choose one. And then there are the engineer or the earth and space science standards. And again, you'll need to choose one out of three. And then with our cross-cutting concepts, the green, you'll need to choose one out of four so that you'll have a total of 5 standards that you are completing with your group. So let's take a look at what this might look like to complete this. So for example, the first required standard is synthesizing and communicating information. That basically just means being able to take a lot of information, put it together, and be able to say something that makes sense. So if you look at what proficiency looks like, you'll see that there are 2 bullet points. The first one is to synthesize or put together this information that came from multiple sources and then communicate what you've learned in writing or in speaking. Okay, so whether you work on your own or you're working with a partner or partners, you have gathered information from at least 5 different sources, and that's on your gathering information planning, or rather tracking tool. And then you've also had different media types that you've incorporated. And this was all to try to understand some question related to astronomy. So with all of this information, you need to put those ideas together in kind of like a story about what's going on to answer your question. So you might start by saying, in order to synthesize, what I would recommend is that each person in the group will review all of the information on their tracking tool and then create one narrative or one sort of overall explanation that answers your research question. Then I would recommend, once you've done that, you're going to compare your answers. What are the big ideas that come out? And you're going to want to make sure that you address those big ideas. As far as, and then you can put those ideas, those big ideas together into some sort of a presentation. Once you've done that, for your appropriate sources, to make sure that your sources were appropriate, you'll be doing your checklist, but you also are going to need to include a bibliography. And I'll get into that a little bit more later. Mr. Turney is actually developing that piece of this project, so we'll get that information soon. And then when you're thinking about, well, how are you going to communicate? So to communicate, this is basically going to be your project. So what are you going to do? Are you going to have, we will show what we know by creating a poster. On that poster, we will have the following sections. Something like that, and list those out. And you might even assign a section to the different people in your group. When you move on now, looking at the next required standard, we have our Earth and Space Science standards, gravity and orbits. So this is all about basically how is gravity influencing and influenced by the mass, the distance, the mass and distance of objects that are interacting in a system. So it might be the solar system, it might be the galaxy, it might be the universe, and then using that to explain orbits. In other words, like, why does the Earth orbit the sun and not the other way around? Or what's the deal with Pluto? And why is it, like, what's going on with its orbit? And why does that make it not a planet? That sort of thing. If you're doing energy in a star, or if you are doing the Big Bang, or if you are doing habitability on other planets, all of those are going to be a little bit less directly connected to your idea. So you'll want to think about, for example, if you're doing habitability and you're looking at Mars, maybe you're thinking about the mass and the distance of Mars relative to Earth or relative to the sun, or maybe even thinking about what it might look like if we were ever able to get to a planet far out of our solar system and out of even our galaxy. You could just kind of make some predictions. Anyway, you'll really need to think about that, right? Like, how are you going to address that? So you'll take this time and put these ideas on your chart here. Once that's done, don't forget to have your goal date. Like, when do you plan to have this done? And then continue with each of the next sections. As you read through the options, make sure that you're really thinking about your particular research question and which of these standards will lend itself best to you showing what you've learned and what you understand about your topic. Okay, so this is going to be unique to every person or every group. And that's kind of what makes it fun, but also challenging. So you'll definitely need to spend some time thinking about that. Once you have picked whatever standard you're going to choose, you can always change it if you realize it's not going to work out. But I would recommend that you just highlight the boxes the same color, and that will allow you to just see visibly really quickly which one you've planned to use. And then, of course, you'll be adding your ideas to the column over here on the right. You will continue for all three of the choice standard sections so that by the time you're done, you will have identified 5 standards and you will have a plan for how you're going to show proficiency in those standards. Remembering that the more specific you are, the more time that you put into this right now, the more successful you're going to be on your project. And it'll just be so much more efficient. You'll waste a lot less time if you invest a full class period in really thinking about how you're going to do this. So I look forward to seeing what you've created. Make sure that by the end of the class period that you turn in this document into the assignment in Canvas. Those are set up by group, so only one person in the group needs to share this document. And remember, when you share, you want to make sure that anyone with the link can edit. If I can edit the document, then I will be able to give you really specific feedback, and it will just be a much more efficient process again. So I'm going to change mine back to viewer, but that's what you are going to do. You'll copy the link, and then you will upload that link into the Canvas assignment. I'm looking forward to seeing what you come up with.